it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I got a video here. This is a replay that comes in from Siege Engine. He was a regular on the forums and the NA forums, and he had a post where he said, hey, look, I'm having a hard time doing 2 MOE, getting my second MOE. I can get some first MOEs, but I'm having a hard time with the second one. And it was a general comment of, how do I get better? How do I do this? And I said, hey, send me a video because it's hard to tell what you're doing, good and bad, without a video. So we sent this T-34-85M, which is a Tier 6 Russian medium tank. It's a premium, and it is probably in the argument for the #1 Tier 6 medium in the game. It is a really good medium. He's carrying 45 AP. He's got 15 APCR. I think that's a fair loadout for this tank. He's got a couple kits. In fact, he's carrying 2, interestingly, repair kits. So right off the bat, not really sure why you would do that. You can get away without the automatic fire extinguisher on, for the most part, on Russian tanks because they don't light on fire as easily as some. I would recommend you put the automatic fire extinguisher on this one there, Siege Engine. But this is really to taste. If you want to run 2 repair kits because you're not worried about fires as much, that's fine. I just hate being lit on fires so badly that I run an automatic fire extinguisher on everything. But as far as the loadout, that looks good. I don't know what your equipment is. You'd have to go ahead and comment on that down below. But I'm assuming a gun rammer, vents, and vert stab or GLD, whichever one it is, that this one can carry. So he's in a 510, and he is here on Fisherman's Bay. Top tier. This is a good setup for him. Should be able to have a pretty good game. We're going to go through this. I'm going to talk about the things that you do. We'll start off with positioning. We'll talk about the repositioning decisions you made and take a look at if there's some things you could do to do better. The result of this game, a little foreshadowing, the result of this game is good. He has a nice game, but there's some interesting things that happen along the way. So let's see what we can do for old Siege Engine here as he rolls up on Fisherman's Bay from the north cap and heads up to the assassin line that Wargaming has built for both sides on this now kind of silly map. So he comes up here to these bushes, and this is a good initial decision as far as positioning goes. However, it's not quite right because, and you'll see it in a minute when he zooms in, you cannot see, Siege, you cannot see these guys down here because you're too low. The ridge is too high. See this corner up here? That is where you want to be. You want to be up in this corner. Now, people are blind shooting that corner and that spot quite a bit, but if you are looking for early spots and damage, and early damage gets you more damage later, and that's what you're trying to do for an MOE, and that's what you're trying to do to win, and that's what you're trying to do to increase your stats, and yada, yada, yada. Chasing win 8, all that kind of BS. So the sooner your gun starts shooting, the sooner the damage starts coming in, the more you get. I mean, it's pretty easy and obvious, but to do that, you've got to position correctly, and while I think your general idea here is right, you really need to be up top. So let's watch what happens. He comes in here, see how you can't quite see that, and I think you might have had a shot on that guy had you been further up. You are going to get spotted when you shoot up there a lot of times, not always, depends on which guy you're shooting at and what his spotting range is. So you have to be ready to draw back. But look at that. That slow KV-1, you'd have seen him in plenty of time to take a shot. Probably 2 missed shot opportunities, at least 1, and probably 2 missed shot opportunities right off the bat. And there's somebody else you might have had a shot on right there. So we're going to take a look at him. This is something you tend to do, and it's hard to tell if it's a computer thing or just you. You need to think a little bit more about lead fire, because I notice you point right at them and fire, and the further away they are and the faster their right to left or left to right movement is, the more lead fire you need. So if you're a skeet shooter or you understand that kind of thing, you definitely need to shoot in front of them as they're moving, or at least get to the front of their tank. You get lit and now we move back. At least get to the front of their tank when you shoot. And there'll be a couple more examples of that. That's kind of those technical things that you need to work on for this game. And while this game is not always all twitch and technical, specific tactical moves like that, they are important. So if you can get them right, that's going to add a few more points of damage to you along the way. So you have done a pretty decent job of kind of controlling this top area right here. And we've got some friends. You're looking at a KV-1. Some of this is map knowledge. You should have known that guy was behind all those buildings over there. And it's okay to investigate. You came off of it pretty quickly. But I see that a couple times in this replay where you're sort of looking at a place that I'm thinking, there's no way you're going to have a shot there. You're kind of wasting your time. So that will come with experience on the maps. This T-34 is here, and he is poking out a little bit. There's at least him, and I would imagine there's probably more than one. So I like how you're being careful. There's a 34-85, there's the 34, and a shot. Let's talk about another technical thing that you are doing with your gameplay here. I think you're using shift for zoom. I really recommend against that. I am a big proponent of the scroll wheel. There are plenty of better players than me that use the shift. I get it. But what happened right there is the problem with shift. When you hit shift and zoomed, you weren't pointed right at the guy, and you kind of were now offset, and you start searching around. It's like bringing up a pair of binoculars and trying to keep the binoculars on a guy that's 2 feet from you, dodging back and forth. It's not that easy. So anyway, I'm a big proponent of that. I think you had some shots in the KV-1 down there. If you investigated it, it's hard to tell right here with what we're looking at. But you're fighting these guys up here, and you seem to let shots go, right? These guys are kind of running around like cockroaches over here, and this leopard is giving you an opportunity. They are glommed on to this leopard, and these are the kind of things you need to pay attention to in your local tactical fight. That guy's probably going to die. He's being very foolish, but you need to leverage what he's doing and start really paying attention to these three clowns, because what you want to do here is get rid of the 34-85M, the 34, and the ELC if you can. The faster you get rid of them, the sooner you own this spot. And this is a key and critical spot for map control. And you had that 34. He went right across the open. So unknown why you're sitting there. The ELC comes out in the open, and you're sort of glommed onto this 34-85M, really just fixated on getting a shot on him, which you do, I think. There we go. Which you do, but again, I think you probably lost another 2 shots in there. So where are we? Maybe 3 or 4 shots, opportunities that you could have created for yourself. And now we're going to move off this way. And I'm going to tell you right here, this decision, down in the comments, please tell me exactly why you did this, because this is probably one of the worst decisions you made of the game. And it's a bit inexplicable to me, because you really owned that top area. Yes, they had you spotted. Yes, there were a couple tanks right there. But let's take a look at this for a second. You got these guys 6'4". You owned this area up here. You were absolutely pummeling these guys. You're doing a nice job technically with staying already safe, coming out and shooting when they couldn't shoot you. And while I thought you had some missed shot opportunities, you were careful enough to not trade hit points for them, which is something I unfortunately tend to do quite a bit. But you'd won it. That was your terrain, and it was critical to this battle. But now we do a big reposition. For everybody listening right now, repositioning in this game is hugely important, but there needs to be a good reason for it, and you need to do the right reposition. Just simply going, time to reposition, let me just go over to some other part of the map. That's not good enough. That doesn't help anybody. And as a matter of fact, look what's going on over there on the east side, where all these guys are trying to wrap around on your 2 tanks, sitting up here behind these bushes and just sniping into these guys. You're going to have a field day down here. In fact, I think you had some shots on the guys while they were on this road right here, which is one of the nice things about this spot, is shooting down into that area there. And you could have supported your 2 tanks, because you're still slightly ahead, but you're about to get behind. And we get into a bush in the middle of the map where there's no shots. Now think about the time when you left that middle. You haven't shot since then. And let's just kind of watch as you drive around here. There goes 2 of your tanks. They're beating you up in the town right there. Probably going to lose that heavy because there's nobody supporting him right there. I would even say there is a possibility that had you moved down into the town, you'd have had to go the long way to make sure you didn't get shot by their little assassin line. You may have even been able to change that fight down there. And think about removing those 3 tanks. Let's say even one of you just lived, but you remove those 3 enemy tanks, and to the loss of one of you, well ahead. Now you've won over on the west side, and again, I'm being critical right here, but I do not understand why you are in the back going into a bush. There's no shots back here, and you are absolutely relying on the enemy to make a mistake. And the rest of the gameplay is going to be very passive, hoping that the enemy makes a mistake. And if you're going to want to get better, if you want your MOEs to come along, if you want to get that second MOE, you have to learn how to be carefully aggressive. And I really thought initially, when I first saw you go there and what you were doing, I said, all right, this guy's got it. He's going to be carefully aggressive. But when you backed out of that position, abandoned a great map control position, and then kind of got back into these various bushes back here. I went, okay, this is a pretty actually easy one to analyze and to give you some advice. And in general, you need to be a little bit more carefully aggressive. So I say a little bit more because I don't want you to go YOLOing out there because Guido said you need to do that. And this is really pretty typical, everybody watching this, when somebody gets to about Siege's level of skill, when they're starting to sort of figure it out and break out, because they have been pummeled so hard up to this point and they don't have a good idea of why a lot of times, they will go to this very passive kind of gameplay. And it's just natural. Now this is another example of lead fire. See how you were just pointed straight at that KV-2 as he came in? You were sort of looking at him behind the rock. You knew he was moving from right to left. I'd have positioned my pipper right there, let it zoom in, and then as soon as he showed up, fired away right about here, because he's not moving very fast. He's a KV-2. Maybe even a little bit further out so that I didn't have as big a chance of hitting the rock, so that when his big old fat turret and side was right in the most opportune place, I'd have fired away right there. So let's watch what happens. You get it, you do get it, but it's on his back, right, as opposed to center of mass right there. You just made that shot harder than it needed to be. So back to the passive thing I was talking about, it's pretty typical for players at this level to start to play that way, and the trick is to break out of it. Some never do. That's where you get the 50, 70,000 game player who's sitting down there at a 48% win rate, and they never really break out of that passive gameplay, and they're always in the back. I will say, Siege, you got a good idea of the bush mechanics. We're seeing an example of it right here coming up. One thing about this position here that I don't like, let's just get specific. Hey, you know what? We're in this situation in the game. This is what I got, so now I got to deal with it. That is an important skill in this game, is to not worry about how you got there, but do the best thing for where you are. One thing about that position that you're now abandoning, which I was happy with, is you get spotted in there, it's over. I mean, they're going to shred you from every single direction. Good news is there's not a lot of guns in the game. Bad news is there's probably enough to shred this tank that gets caught out sitting in one of those bushes right there. Plus, it's one of the more obvious places to be. So we do a fighting retreat. We're doing a lot of retreating. I'm going to tell you, this is not a bad idea, but I think I would have really been interested in trying to get rid of that KV-2. If you don't want to take care of the KV-2, then reposition all the way around the map and come back up over here and see if you can't find this scout in the middle somewhere. Get the scout out, maybe look for the Wolverine. Try to go somewhere they're not expecting you. The last place they saw you was sitting around over there, and you're not really challenging them by showing up somewhere else, by just running back and getting into a bush. And unfortunately, down goes the Stug 3. And it's down to 3 guys. So we're sort of just sitting in this bush, hoping that the enemy makes a mistake. So let's go back while we watch Siege hang out here for a bit and talk about that decision to come out of that center spot at about E6 and to reposition into the middle of the map and to not shoot for a very, very long time. Now, this is where I was talking about he has a good idea of the bush mechanics. I like that, so that's a good tactical skill. Keep that up. But when he left that spot in the middle, we got to deal with this ELC. We'll get that spot in the middle. I would have been aggressive and gone after that ELC. You needed to get rid of this guy. It's going to end up working out for you. You did avoid the artillery. And I think your artillery ends up killing him here, which is very good for you, because if he'd have continued up underneath you, that could have been big problems. So a little bit lucky there that your artillery is able to take out that ELC. I'd have been more aggressive. You might have even taken a shot from the KV-2, and you do run the risk with a KV-2 of being penned by the silly thing in this tank. That is a risk, but at that point, that ELC needed to die. Good news is he's gone. So now we're back again, once again, to talking about coming out of the E7 area right there and abandoning your guys that were over on the east side. At this point, had you been more aggressive and stayed there, there'd probably be a couple less enemy tanks, and you'd have preserved maybe a couple of your own tanks. This game essentially would be over if you had stayed a little more aggressive up there. And this is the thing I think that a lot of players at your skill don't really understand. They look at it at this point and go, my team or RNG or matchmaker or whatever it is that they believe has caused this issue right here. But they don't back it up and look at the early gameplay. How did my decisions early game-wise affect where I am now? Now, you can't do anything in this game right now about that, because that's all in the past. But when you analyze it and try to get better, that you have to look at that, because that is all there is to look at. That is the most important thing to look at. If you want to look at this end game where how I use this particular bush as being the way I won this game, you're probably missing the big picture and the actual bottom line reason why you got to this situation in the game. And really it goes back to that critical decision to abandon what was a critical map control position that you had basically won, hard fought on this map. So let's watch what you do from here, because we're going to have one more, I think, very critical mistake that I want to talk about, and a lot of people will make it. Kind of hanging out here. Pretty soon we're going to have the Wolverine show up, and you make a great decision here, because this is exactly right. He shows up and you now have an opportunity to go take out that Wolverine. You know the KV-2 is too slow. He's way back there. Now, the problem is you've given a lot of time to maybe drive up. If he's aggressive, he may be sitting up in those buildings, so you do have to watch for that. Some long-range derpinator shot right there. But getting in here and taking out this Wolverine is exactly what has to happen. And I like the running shot. That's exactly right. Instead of stopping, take that shot coming in. But what I don't like is the cutting to the right. I'd have gone straight up and over that hill and taken him down, because he's shooting your artillery. And this just allows him to get the reload going on. It takes you forever to get up here. Good news is you don't take a shot, so you eventually get there. But I think it goes back to what I've been talking about, being a little bit more aggressive in spots. I think you really owned that guy if you'd have just driven straight up and over. And guess what else? That tank will ram the snot out of a Wolverine. So let's say you run in and bounce. Who cares? Ram him, and he's done. Everything's a weapon. The train's a weapon. Your tank's a weapon. Your brain's a weapon. Use all that stuff. So we're going to come back here, and this is where the last or big critical mistake at the end is made. And it's good for everyone to watch this. You're going to get to a bush. I like carefully moving up. This is a good idea. I'd have sat here for a moment like you did, and I think you actually start to move. I'd have dodged down before right there, and unknown why you're sort of highlighting yourself here, because you're just asking to get derped. And there he goes. You stop, you look. All right, not spotted, right? Sixth sense did not go off. You own this guy. He probably knows he's spotted, so he's a little bit worried. More than likely, he is looking this direction. More than likely, he is looking to the west with his turret. That thing has a terribly slow turret, and you're able to come right up behind him in this building. And I'm thinking right now, fantastic. He's going to drive right up. We're going to come over here, come right behind this KV-2 and nuke him. And even if we bounce, we're going to avoid his turret by doing some circling, and we'll kill him with the second shot. But inexplicably, you decide to go around. And I think what you're trying to do is be a little more clever by going the long way. And then we see an artillery. And we are enamored of the artillery, and we miss, and gosh darn it, we miss. So we need to mess with this artillery some more. Let's shoot this artillery. Yeah, oh, and now we're chasing artillery. We take a shot, we do an auto aim, we hit him. That's pretty lucky. But what you have done now is you've sandwiched yourself between two enemies, when in fact you could have cleared out the KV-2 first and then eaten these guys' lunch at your leisure. But now it's going to get exciting, because we've decided to not go after the priority target, and we've decided to go after some artillery, and we're going to take some gigantic dispersion shots, and pretty soon we're spotted, and that KV-2 is going, oh yeah, the back of a T-34-85M. This is going to be good. Oh geez, somebody shot and missed. Going after the other artillery, the KV-2 is now zooming in and looking to take a shot on you. There he is, and he is now coming, and in fact you have shots on him, or he'll come around that rock in just a minute. And at this point, I think it's right to keep trucking. Just go kill the artillery, then you'll have to deal with the KV-2 a little while later. You're spotted again. I would dodge down in here. There you go. And that's a rock. Remember, if you're not seeing a highlight, whoop, go around the other way, and down he goes. All right, you're spotted, and you're going to be lit for a while. Be careful about coming up too high here and giving this KV-2 a shot. He may just time that shot. You're probably okay. And now this decision, again, it's a bit odd to me. I'm not really sure why you're going down into the flat and into the open. The KV-2 was last seen up on this hill right here. Looks like artillery's still shooting at him. And we're down to 2 minutes, and we're kind of going out. I definitely would have come up in these bushes here and then snuck up this little rise and seen if I could get into this next bush without being seen, or maybe find this guy. And I don't know if you actually knew this or suspected it, but the funny thing is you find him in the middle right here, even though there's no real essay. That's the way he was going, and there he is. We'll take a shot. And we get him down to 166, and let's look at, oh boy. we get one shot, the aforementioned one shot by the KV-2, and here we go, down he goes. I would have gone straight at him and kept my front armor, just hoping that I bounced instead of giving him the side for the HE right there. And it goes back to, if you'd have just gone and killed him first, then you probably would have been just fine. Again, you do run the risk of being one shot by him even in the front. I have been pinned by HE in the front by KV-2s in my 34-85M specifically. So it does happen, but it's probably better to put the front armor to him vice the side armor. In any event, you end up winning 1,924 damage, 407 assist, and a hard-fought battle with some really good things. I think technically your proficiency is pretty good in individually fighting your tank. I think you need to work on being more cautiously aggressive, and that's where the damage is going to come in. You got 1,900 here, but you relied a lot on the enemy to make mistakes. And that's fine, you can play that way, but that's not going to rack up damage. The only way to rack up damage is shoot early, shoot often, and keep shooting. And anytime your gun is silent for any length of time, you need to start thinking to yourself, why? Why am I not finding a shot? Why am I not creating a shot? Why am I not positioning to get a shot? Why am I not helping my team who is in the middle of a fight? If you're sitting back in a bush waiting for the enemy to come at you, then sometimes you'll get a 1,924 damage game, but more often you're not going to get anywhere near that, in your MOEs and your skill and your win 8 and whatever it is you're chasing is not going to go up. Anyway, man, thanks for sending that in. I do appreciate that. Definitely some good things for you to build on. The individual skill, like I said, is pretty decent. Now it's just the concept of getting in your mind good positioning, not just general spots, but the actual good spots within those general spots, and then reacting to the battle instead of being reactive to the battle. All right, man. Thanks for sending it. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you.